So this is the Above Board Introduction to Good Governance and Trusteeship event, and we are delivering this session as part of Small Charity Week. So Small Charity Week is an online campaign which the purpose is to spotlight the incredible work of charities throughout the year that has gone before, which we've obviously had quite a different one this year, and charities have played a vital role during the past 12 to 18 months in supporting communities. So today is Policy Day, and we're delivering this to try and support local organisations in feeling confident in their governance and trusteeship, and also to encourage new people who are interested in trusteeship to get involved and learn a bit more about it. So I'm going to start off with a quick video that just tells a little bit about CAVA and the services we provide at large, and then I'm going to get into the nitty gritty. So if you could let me know if you could hear it, that would be fantastic.
CAVA is the local VCSE infrastructure organisation supporting charities, groups and social enterprises across Warwickshire and Solihull. If you're looking to grow and develop your organisation to achieve wider community benefit, become more sustainable or engage more volunteers in your work, we are here to help.
We provide a range of support on topics such as structures that you can adopt. If you want to become a charity, we can guide you through that process. We can also help on business planning, consortium development, partnership development and bidding for contracts.
We can help you understand the purpose and specificities of a social enterprise set up as a community interest company. We can guide you through the benefits and constraints of this type of social enterprise and help you understand whether it would fit the objectives of your community projects.
When it comes to funding, CAVA are here to support you in identifying appropriate funders for your project, developing that project for that funder and application, and finalising the application through proofreading. We also support strategic conversations about funding, looking at different income streams and how to be sustainable. We also deliver regular Meet the Funder events and workshops, connecting communities with local funders and giving you the opportunity to ask questions and learn more.
At CAVA, we can help with all aspects of volunteering. We work closely with groups to assist them with recruitment and policies and procedures. We assist individuals to find appropriate placements. We work with businesses in the area to support their employer-supported volunteering programmes. On behalf of us all at CAVA, I'd like to say a huge thank you to all of you amazing volunteers.
To find out more and for the contact information of your local team, visit our website at wcava.org.uk.
So you've got many stars of the silver screen with you today. There are more of us, I promise, but I am joined by Carol, as I have already introduced to those who were here right at the beginning, who is the volunteering coordinator for Rugby, and Aline, who is the Funding and Group Development Officer for Solihull. I am the Funding and Group Development Officer for Rugby, so I cover this area, and we also have people in both of these roles across the county, in Nuneaton and Bedworth, Warwick District, Stratford, North Warwickshire, Rugby and Solihull. So I'm going to jump straight in with the presentation about good governance and trusteeship now. So the overarching role of a trustee is to comply with your governing document and the law. So you and your co-trustees must make sure that the charity complies with its governing document, comply with charity law requirements and other laws that they are liable to, for example, the Equalities Act when looking at equal opportunities and recruitment of both employees, if that's relevant to you, and volunteers, and the General Data Protection Act, so GDPR, when you're looking at the data that you store and use, whether that's membership, donors, service users. So ensuring that people from board all the way down to delivery staff are complying with all of these legal requirements. So the governing document, this can be a number of different document types. You may call it your constitution, or many other words I've seen for different various governing documents that have been written over the past 100 years you encounter with older charities and newer charities. The purpose of this document is to outline the rules that your charity or unincorporated organisation, depending on your structure, abide by. So this will outline the purposes and objects of the charity, the powers of trustees, occasionally who the trustees are, or at least how many there must be, and the rules and procedures in place for the recruitment and replacement of trustees. If you have a wider membership, so for example, if you are a CIO, with the association model, which is the membership model, your constitution would outline what members' voting rights are, for example, if they have a membership fee, what things that they would vote on, whether that would be the voting in of new trustees, holding trustees accountable and things like that. The trustees and members meetings, so the AGM, any extraordinary meetings, how the trustees must go about arranging those and how they are conducted as well. Within these meetings, the governing document will outline how those decisions are made and recorded, and in the event of winding up, how that would be done. So the next thing I just want to cover is the responsibilities of the chair, the treasurer and secretary. I often encounter people who are on a board and aren't particularly sure what their role is. They may have been elected chair, but they're not clear on exactly what those responsibilities mean. Or they may have been the chair, secretary or treasurer for an unincorporated organisation that's become a charity, and their responsibilities have changed or become more pertinent, that they abide by certain procedures in accordance with the Charity Commission. So the chair is the person who leads the committee and the organisation to enable it to fulfil its purpose. They act as a spokesperson, figurehead as appropriate, and also within all board meetings would chair, believe it or not, that meeting. So lead the conversation, guide trustees to get involved and contribute to that session, and ensure effective relationships and conversations are had between the committee, staff, volunteers, external stakeholders, the community. So within the chair role, skills and qualities include willingness to lead. It's a role with a more significant requirement of your time, as you may be proactive in separate conversations leading up to a board meeting or AGM, for example, surrounding changing the legal structure of your organisation, something which has to be confirmed at an AGM. So you have to have a willingness to lead and to commit your time, possess tact, diplomacy and powers of persuasion, as it's your role to keep the conversations moving and to diplomatically guide conversation towards a consensus. Possess relevant knowledge to be informative within that decision making, and have relevant skills to run a meeting as well. So that comes back to the chairing of the meeting and being confident in speaking to a group of people. Moving on to the treasurer. This role is to oversee the financial affairs of the organisation and ensuring that they are complying with the legal, constitutional and accepted accounting practice as outlined in the governing document, which I mentioned before, law and good practice. This includes ensuring proper records are kept and financial procedures in place. So this may be your annual accounts, regular cash flows that are shared with the board more widely, including monitoring and reporting on financial health of the organisation. So ensuring that at all board meetings there's a transparency present about the accounts, and that all board members are making informed decisions based on information provided by the treasurer. So this may include on, for example, your reserves, whether, particularly in light of COVID, there are particular issues or funding needs that need to be explored by perhaps a specialist member of the board with an interest in fundraising, that may be interested in stepping up to the plate in that situation. So proactive conversations about funds and accounts. They also will oversee the production of financial reports, returns, accounts and audits on a yearly basis, not just on a meeting by meeting basis, in order for that to be compliant with the Charity Commission reporting. So skills and qualities that are beneficial in this situation include knowledge and experience of current fundraising, current fundraising and financial practice. There's the and's in the wrong place there. Relevant to voluntary and community organisations. So this may not be a fundraising specialist, but could be. Often other people that may find themselves as treasurers may have a background in accounting. Occasionally for large businesses, you find banks occasionally encourage their local team to engage in community activities through being the treasurer of a board. Good financial analysis skills and ability to communicate clearly. Being an accountant is not a prerequisite, but I think that having a good understanding of accounting, if you're stepping into this role, is beneficial in order to not feel out of your depth or uneasy or unsure, as it is one of the key roles on the board. But that doesn't cut anybody out of that opportunity. So the next role is secretary. So these three roles are essential for all boards. So the role of the secretary is to ensure that committee meetings are properly administered. So that may include planning and delivery, including minute taking, keeping membership records up to date, like it says, unless there's a membership secretary as well, and monitoring the action points and following up on those. So skills and qualities associated with that, as listed on this slide, are to be able to delegate and be organised and methodical, having a knowledge of company law, which is something that could be signposted to further training if you've got somebody interested in being a secretary who wants to develop their skills in this area. Having a good knowledge of the organisation's own constitution, which is compulsory to all of these three roles, as sort of in the first slide, the overarching goal is to be compliant with that governing document and the rules outlined in it. And then finally on here, able to give clear advice on procedural matters. So all of that in a nutshell, those roles, and for all trustees, you have certain legal duties and things that are vital for you to do. So ultimately, your legal duties are to act in the charity's best interest, manage your charity's resources responsibly, and act with reasonable care and skill. Within this, it's vital that you deal with the conflicts of interest, implement appropriate financial controls, manage risks, and take appropriate advice. So within all of this, I've found an image on the Charity Commission website which talks about key questions that, as a board, you can ask to evaluate the health of your organisation and the health of your board. So they're questions that trustees should ask each other in order to ensure that the correct procedures and policies are in place. I'm not sure, Aline, if I can actually leave this to go with the supplementary document. Would you be happy to share the questions surrounding for me as I go through these?
You mean questions in the chat, Phoebe?
No, in the document that I sent you over this morning, you know, the supplementary document with the questions surrounding these.
Okay, let me go.
Alternatively, if I do this, can you still see the PowerPoint?
Yes, we can.
Okay, fab. In that case, I can do it myself. That's fine. Okay, so looking at these questions.
Actually, sorry, Phoebe, we've just flipped through.
It's gone
to. Yes, it's gone.
Sorry. Okay, I'll just go through this as it is. So key questions: are we financially strong enough to continue to provide services for our beneficiaries? So this is one of the key questions surrounding finances, and in light of COVID is a really important question to ask yourselves. Do we have the funds in place to continue providing our core activity, and in order to keep delivering on those organisational aims and objectives in the charity governing document? So within this, sort of, what effect is the current economic climate having on our charity and its activities? Have you received, say for example, if you're a trustee of a village hall, have you received any government support that's supported you in delivering your activities? Have you secured any grant funding or statutory funding that has supported you in doing so? And if not, what are the areas that you need to seek additional funding in order to continue delivering that work? Elsewhere on here somewhere, there's a question surrounding how the current economic climate has impacted your donors. So if you regularly do crowdfunding, or you have membership that have a paid membership, or you have regular engaged members of the community who support your organisation, how has this affected that? That may not be financial support, that may be volunteering support. For example, if you run a community garden, are you used to having the support of certain members of the community to help you sustain the land and volunteer, which you are struggling to fulfill now because of the pandemic, and how can you address that?
I'll tell you what, I'll pick up another one.
Yeah, go ahead.
In terms of governance, I think there's a question in there about, are we an effective trustee body?
Yes.
So that will be to help organizations understand for themselves, do we know clearly what our charity's aims are set out in our functioning and our governing document, what our charity will do and what we want it to achieve. So that's our values, our objectives, all those kind of elements. Whether all of the charity's activities are intended to further and support its purposes, potentially our purposes too narrow, do we need to review them maybe at an AGM to increase what we set out to do because things change? Is our charity benefiting the public by carrying out its purposes? That's something charities need to look at on a regular basis to satisfy requirements from your funders maybe, or requirements from local authorities or from your beneficiaries who want to make sure you're working for them. Have we read the essential trustee, the CC3 documents to again understand our remit and what we're supposed to do as trustees? And have we also reviewed our performance as a trustee body? So these are some kind of questions that you might want to ask yourselves on a regular basis in terms of your governance.
Absolutely. Ali mentioned the essential trustee. That's a document I will share with you all when I send the emails out. So it's quite a large document. I've tried to capture quite a lot of the information from that document in this, as well as further supplementary information from the Charity Commission. But it's an extremely valuable sort of central document to look at good trustee practices, and provides a bit more information in these 15 questions as well. So it's a very valuable resource to look at, especially if you have any questions unanswered. As I said, you're welcome to get in touch with us, but that may be a good place to look as well. There are certain questions on here that aren't applicable to all groups, particularly, for example, smaller charities, looking at pension schemes, employment, the ownership of property and assets. So these are really, really important questions to consider if your organisation has these things, whether you're an employer or have a fixed address, or permanent investments or contracts with statutory bodies or other partner organisations. These are all extremely important things to consider at your board meetings to ensure a healthy board.
And looking at the health of your organisation, I don't know if you mentioned that one, what is our policy on reserves? Now, as we can see with the pandemic, we've been thrown into an era where not having reserves will have been rather challenging for any kind of charitable organisation, any kind of organisation, full stop. Questions to ask would be around, do we know what the level of our reserves is right now? And also what kind of reserves levels we need to sustain ourselves for a period of time, be it 3, 4, 6 months, whatever what your reserves policy may be saying, because we need to know what assets are freely available to spend and not already set aside or designated for particular purposes or projects. I suspect if we were to open the floor to discussing that, you might all have faced some challenges on where to allocate those reserves when fundraising pretty much stopped for a number of months, almost over a year now, and what is a priority on a daily basis to sustain your charitable activities.
Absolutely, and I think interesting talking about reserves, there's also several questions about other financial procedures, particularly in the pandemic. We've at CAVA provided a lot of advice on good practice with online banking, and it's important to consider the financial policies and procedures you've got in place surrounding online banking, linking up to one of the points at the top of the PowerPoint there about whether you have robust safeguards in place to prevent fraud. So it all intertwines these 15 questions to answer all of these little bits to encourage conversation, with some supplementary questions that I can share with you as well that go into each of these in a bit more depth, to ensure that your board is healthy, your organisation is healthy, and you're asking the right questions to make sure that that's sustainable in the future as well. So I'm going to go on to the next slide. So a big issue that I've encountered in talking to prospective board members is issues of liability and questions around the liability that they would experience as a board member. So the prosecution of trustees who have acted in good faith is a rare event. It's the responsibility of the board throughout their yearly activity to ensure that everything is well documented and decisions are clearly shown to have been done in the best possible and the fairest possible practices. So that's why this is so rare. If you have robust procedures, robust minute taking in place to ensure that you can always evidence decisions that you made and that they were done in line with the governing document and law, then there would be no particular issue why prosecution of trustees in good faith would take place. But in order to avoid that liability, as it's very rare, but to avoid that, there are certain organisations that have limited liability. I've just listed some information here, but I won't read it out to you about the sort of liabilities that a trustee may have. So specifically linked to third parties, so funders, staff, people that you have contracts with, from the Charity Commission for lack of compliance with their regulations, and liabilities associated with the charity winding up. So if, for example, you were a member of a CIO or a constituted organisation, liability is limited. So the organisation becomes a legal entity in its own right, and it has a legal personality, they call it. So it would be independent from its trustees, and the charity would be then liable as opposed to the trustees. Often this is illustrated in the governing document as liability to the value of £1, or simply limited liability. In unconstituted groups or unincorporated groups, as the organisation is not a legal personality unto its own, the liability is with the trustees, and therefore any contracts that the trustees engaged with would be relationships liable to the trustees. So you can seek trustee indemnity insurance, which can protect you at the cost of the charity. So that would be insurance for trustees. However, if you are looking to, as a charity, to seek out contracts, it would always be our advice to become a constituted charity, because of the additional security and protection for trustees that are involved there. Other insurances I've just added in here just to inform our public liability insurance as well, so to protect against damage of premises or public using particular facilities. Fab. So the next slide, sorry, this is a lot of information. I know that I will be sharing the slides, but I'm just making sure I get everything in the hour session that we've got. And I am just trying to introduce each aspect. And if you do want a conversation about any of these things, do get in touch with us and we can provide some more template documents or guidance on each of these particular aspects. So when it comes to a trustee code of conduct, we do have a template that we can share that you can ask your trustees to sign in advance of being inducted onto the board, or you can ask them to review once a year to ensure that they're aware of their responsibilities, as I keep saying, both to the governing document and their legal responsibilities as board members. But the overarching things that are important are accountability, transparency, integrity, and honesty. So all of these things in practice, looking at organisation mission policies in the law, conflict of interest, relationships with each other, service users, members of the public, members of the organisation, and so on. Ensuring that you are protecting the organisation's reputation, that you're acting for the benefit of the charity and beneficiaries of the organisation as opposed to for financial or material personal gain, and that you're abiding by procedures and practices outlined both in the governing document and in policies such as safeguarding policies, equal opportunity policies, health and safety, all of these things that exist outside of the governing document, as well as participation in training or development and following correct resignation processes if any trustees wanted to stand down. So if you're interested in receiving that template, just let us know at the end of the session and we can share that with you. So now I'm going to pass over to Carol Kavanagh, who is the volunteering coordinator for Rugby, to talk a little bit about recruiting trustees.
Yes, I'm Carol. So I do work with groups around the Rugby Borough, but we have volunteering coordinators across the county. It is quite difficult sometimes to recruit volunteer trustees. So I would advise that you put together, if you're going to look to recruit volunteers, put together a really interesting role description to appeal to people. This slide just really goes through the steps. So you would have to look and see what sort of skills and experience your board needs. So for instance, if it's a health and safety trustee, they'd need some knowledge around that. So once your role descriptions are prepared, it would be a really good idea to get in touch with us and we can promote it for you. The next slide, I think, tells you about that. Most trustees are still recruited by word of mouth or from within their own organisation. So to get a more diverse range of people, it's a really good idea to advertise and approach local businesses and just to sort of think outside the box really and get into communities where you need some representation. Okay. So in CAVA, we have an online secure portal called Volunteer Connect. It's sort of a matching service. So we work with organisations and it's very easy to register. So if you go onto our website and if you look at recruit volunteers, first of all, you upload your details about your organisation and then you can add as many roles as you want. So you can put all your trustee vacancies on it. And once that's registered, because we've got it on the system, we can promote it widely. We can put it on Facebook or Twitter, in local bulletins, in local press. So we can try, really hard for you to find people. We also work with local businesses. So we could actually ask them if any of their employees want to be a trustee. So it is best to get in touch with us to start with.
Sorry, I was talking there and I was muted. It's the typical Zoom thing to do, isn't it? Thank you for that, Carol. I've just added on at the end of Carol's thing here a sort of example trustee skills audit, which is, I would say, quite good practice to do when you're looking at recruiting new trustees. So, for example, if you fill this out and realise that you have an absence with regard to marketing specialism or health and safety, as Carol said, or you want somebody who is knowledgeable in fundraising, or they have experience working with a membership or something like that, or a particular sector, perhaps somebody who's worked within mental health organisations or had been a nurse in the past, things like that, that you may find useful on your board to add an extra level of insight and experience to your decision making. A trustee skills audit is a good thing to do to evaluate that, just as Carol said, looking at the needs of the organisation in advance of recruiting. It's really good to have a reflection of people's varying skills on your board, although it can be tempting to just have a board of engaged volunteers. That's fantastic. But if you're looking at growing the organisation or seeking new funding, adding that skill set to the board is a good way of integrating that at decision-making levels and engaging those voices in strategic thinking about where the organisation may be going next. So the last slide before we answer some questions is an FAQ that I often get about trustee expenses and payments. And this is largely in situations where people are looking to set up a charity for a project that they hold very close to them, and they are looking to lead on a delivery basis, but also want to be a trustee and had been getting paid. Perhaps the organisation was a company in advance of becoming a charity, or was looking to become a charitable company, but was also looking to be a trustee. So the fundamental idea of trusteeship or voluntary trusteeship is that it is voluntary. You are committing your time without a conflict of interest of your own benefits. So trustees should not put themselves in those positions where their personal interests conflict with their duty to act. Trustees are entitled to have their expenses met, for example, with travel, that's the word I'm looking for, as well as on the Charity Commission, it lists here providing childcare if that's something that you have a particular policy about, or other costs associated with attending meetings. That's acceptable. However, looking at paying trustees for the supply of services, for example, if you have a member of your board who is a contractor who happens to be a particularly engaged volunteer in the organisation, and you need some work done, and they provide the best quote and are the best rated, and you can clearly outline that they are the most suitable choice for the organisation, that could then be done in compliance with the rules outlined by the Charity Commission. And it also must be listed in your governing document, and can't be done if the Constitution prohibits this. If you're in a situation where you want to make a payment of that kind to a board member, but it's not outlined in your governing document, you have to apply to the Commission for authority to do so before payment is made. So that may be in the form of changing your Constitution in order to allow for payments of that type. But it is non-standard, as I said, because the trustee role is a voluntary position. So that's me done with the bulk of it. Sorry for speaking so fast and for being very full on with this information. This final slide is just to remind you about the Small Charity Week celebrations that we're doing that I mentioned at the beginning. We're really trying to encourage organisations to share their stories, particularly on Twitter, using the hashtag CAVA Small Charity Week if your organisation has a Twitter page, or sharing a story about another organisation or charity that supported you during the pandemic, because we want to fill Twitter or fill our social media pages with positive stories of the incredible work that's being done across Warwickshire in the past year. So that is it. We can all breathe now. We can all exhale. So, as I said, if you have any very specific questions, any of a personal nature, as this is being recorded and will be put on YouTube for others to view after the fact, if you have any of those questions, do please either email me and I can pass you on, or look on our website where you can find the contact details of the team members across the county. Does anybody have any questions?
Let me check the chat. There's nothing at the moment in the chat, Phoebe.
Okay.
Or is there anything that you would like us to have covered that we haven't covered that would have been of benefit to you that we could answer now outside of this remit, or create another event around?
It's always nice when there's no questions. It feels like hopefully.
No, it was a quick,
Nigel.
it was a good comprehensive run through. Thank you very much indeed. That was a good refresher. Thank you.
Thank you, Nigel. That's really, thank you for that feedback. I'm glad it wasn't too full on. We really encourage feedback for our events, as Eileen said, because we want to continue delivering things that are useful and that people want to attend and would value more information on. So we do have a feedback form that I'll be sending out. If there's any particular events, for example, if you want to learn more about funding, or there's a particular fund that you're aware of, and perhaps you let us know, we might be able to set up a Meet the Funder event for that opportunity so that we can engage, but just let us know. Eileen, do you want to tell us, everyone, about the session we've got tomorrow as part of Small Charity Week as well?
Yes, so tomorrow we're doing a bid writing training session, and I think that's at 1 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. You can still book for that session if you go on Eventbrite, and we would really strongly advise that you follow us on Eventbrite, because this way, as soon as we make an event available for booking, you'll know straight away, you'll get an email straight away. So that bid writing training is a little bit more towards new starters on the bid writing element, people who may not have had an opportunity to write a bid so far, but it would be, as you said, Nigel, today was a good refresher, and that would be a good refresher for anyone. Plus we're having a look to see how the pandemic may have influenced how we should approach writing those applications. So yes, if you can join us, it'd be lovely to see you again tomorrow.
Right.
I've just popped that in the chat, the Eventbrite link for that. And as Eileen said, fantastic if you could, if you're interested in the events that we deliver, following that Eventbrite page. Also, if you're not signed up to our newsletter, we provide a huge amount of information in our newsletters, and also do locality bulletins in each of our areas. So you can sort of have information about wider opportunities and things that are happening at your front door. So yeah, I would recommend signing up for that. And just finally, we also have a membership at CAVA, and you have access to certain additional layers of support, for example, back office services that we can recommend to you, like HR and things like that. So you can sign up for that on our website as well.
Yes, because we mustn't forget, we're a charity ourselves. We're a charity ourselves, and the strength of our members and being able to demonstrate to local authorities the volume of, not just the volume of organisation that work with us and through us, but the breadth of the services you provide and the impact you're having, makes your voice heard more loudly with local authorities. And it's completely free, so feel free to go and register with us.
Exactly. I'm not a trustee, but I'm here enforcing our objects and our mission in this session. But thank you so much, everyone, for coming. It's been great to hear a little bit about where you've all come from, and I wish you all the best, Karen, as well, in seeking new trusteeship. Please do get in touch with your volunteering coordinator. I'm sure that they'll be very happy to have a conversation with you about it.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.